Wisdom, why aren't you taking this matter seriously? You're almost 35 and not married. No girlfriend and not even a female friend. Are you gay? Mrs. Smith questioned his son. Wisdom couldn't help the laugh that escaped his mouth. Now that's just absurd, Ma. I like women. This isn't funny. I don't know why you're laughing. I want grandchildren. The house you bought for me in the village is just too big for just me. Mom, Wisdom called, interrupting his mother. This talk won't go anywhere. What's all this talk about grandchildren? You have Bella, don't you? I want more, like 2 or 3 more. And a daughter-in-law isn't that bad of an idea. I've been married before, Mom, and you saw how it turned out. I'm not doing that again. If it's grandchildren you want, I can give you that. For the right amount of money, any girl will be willing to get pregnant for me. Daniela walked through the road, lost in thoughts. 250,000 naira? How am I going to get that amount? She pondered. She was just returning from the hospital where she had admitted her mother who had suddenly fallen sick. Cancer, they had said, and she was required to make a deposit of 250,000 before they would commence treatment. The only money she had on her was 5,000 naira, which she had gotten from the random jobs she did. She graduated from the university 6 months ago and was yet to get a job. Lost in her thoughts and consumed by the weight of her worries, Daniela didn't notice the approaching car until its blaring horn shattered the silence, jolting her out of her reverie. Startled, she jumped back, her heart racing as she turned to face the angry driver who was stepping out of the car. The man stepped out of the car, his face flushed with frustration, and immediately began shouting at Daniela. Are you blind? Can't you see a car coming? You could have gotten yourself killed. If you want to commit suicide, leave me out of it. Daniela did not care who was on the wrong here, but she would not let this man go free. She was already in a bad mood and he wanted to add to it. She snapped at him, releasing her pent-up frustration. Did you not see me? I was walking here, minding my own business. Maybe next time you should pay more attention to the road. Taken aback by her fiery response, the man paused, momentarily speechless. But just as he was about to respond, Daniela lifted her hand, silencing him with an intense stare, and turned to her heels, walking away from the confrontation. That night, Daniela lay in a small cramped room she had managed to afford, tears streaming down her face as she stifled her cries. The immense pressure and uncertainty seemed to suffocate her, threatening to crush her spirit. But within the depths of her despair, a small flicker of determination ignited. The following morning, her eyes swollen from crying, Daniela wiped away her tears and fixed her gaze on the future. She knew she couldn't let one setback define her. With a newfound resilience, she gathered her belongings, pushed herself up and left the room. In search of any opportunity that would provide her with a stable income, Daniela found herself entering a nearby school, hoping against hope that they might have a position available. However, disappointment quickly washed over her as she was informed that there was no vacancies at the moment. As Daniela turned to leave, a sight caught her attention. A young girl, roughly 6 years old, sat alone outside the school, her eyes filled with a mix of confusion and longing. Curiosity getting the better of her, Daniela approached the girl, her voice gentle. Hey there, why are you sitting outside all alone? Shouldn't you be picked up by now? The little girl looked up at Daniela with a mixture of sadness and hope, and her lips quivered slightly as she explained. I'm waiting for my daddy to come get me, but he's always late. Moved by the girl's vulnerability, Daniela's heart melted. With a reassuring smile, she offered her company. Would you like some company while you wait? We can chat and pass the time together." The girl, whose name Daniela learned was Bella, nodded enthusiastically, her eyes lighting up with gratitude. They sat side by side, exchanging stories, laughter, and even sharing a moment of hunger as their stomachs rumbled in unison. Pointing to a nearby cafe, Daniela suggested they grab a bite to eat. Bella eagerly agreed, and with their bellies filled and spirits lifted, they returned to the school, their laughter echoing through the air. Just as they reached the school entrance, Bella's father was coming out of the gate, a mix of worry and anger etched across his face. He immediately reprimanded Bella for wandering off, demanding an explanation for her actions. Bella, undeterred by her father's stern tone, explained with innocence and excitement. "I waited for you, but I got hungry. This lady," she pointed towards Daniela, "offered to buy me food." Her father's eyes followed her pointing finger, and he froze as he recognized Daniela. "You? You dare to?" Seeing that she wasn't getting the thanks she wanted, she firmly waved at Bella, sending her a warm smile, and cast a stern glare at Bella's father. She then turned around and walked away, no longer willing to entertain his presence or exchange conversation. A frown edged across Wisdom's face as he realized the full weight of responsibility would once again fall solely on his shoulders. Taking care of his daughter Bella while juggling his demanding work seemed like an insurmountable task. "Can't you stay a little longer?" he asked. "I can, but I won't. It seems my presence is the reason why you don't want to marry." Seeing the conversation was leading back to marriage, he bid his mother goodbye and went back inside. As the days passed, Wisdom began to realize that he couldn't handle everything on his own, and he decided to place a notice on his gate, seeking a nanny to assist him with taking care of Bella while he worked. Meanwhile, down the road, Daniela walked by, her eyes catching the notice. She wasted no time in going in. "This man again," she complained upon seeing Wisdom. "I'd better just leave," she said, and turned to leave. Wisdom, seeing Daniela hesitate, turned to her with a dismissive tone and said, "I wouldn't hire you anyways." Nodding in agreement, Daniela turned to leave, ready to walk away from the situation. But before she could take another step, Bella's joyful squeal pierced the air. Turning around, she saw Bella running towards her, excitement beaming from her face. "Is she my new nanny? I like her." The two adults stood glaring at each other. "To my study then." They sat there in silence for a while. Taking a deep breath, Wisdom broke the silence by stating matter-of-factly, "Your salary will be 350,000 naira. You will need to move into the house and be available for Bella's care. Are you okay with these terms?" Daniela shook her head in agreement, indicating that the terms were acceptable to her. However, she hesitated for a moment before speaking up. "I will need an advance of 250,000 naira. I have some urgent expenses I need to take care of." Wisdom's frustration bubbled up inside him, not wanting to give in to her request. He raised his voice, exclaiming, "That's out of the question. I can't just hand over that large sum of money up front." Undeterred, Daniela maintained her composure. "I understand your concerns, but I am in dire need of the money. If you cannot meet this condition, then perhaps it will be better for us if you find another nanny." Wisdom felt conflicted. On one hand, he knew that finding a nanny who Bella genuinely liked was a rarity, and he couldn't bear to see his daughter upset. On the other hand, he couldn't ignore the fact that Daniela's boldness and insistence were testing his patience. Realizing that a compromise was necessary, Wisdom let out a defeated sigh. "Fine, I will agree to your terms, but I expect you to sign a contract of agreement. If you fail to fulfill your duties or disappear, I will have the legal right to take appropriate action." As days turned into weeks, Daniela took on her role as Bella's nanny with unwavering dedication. Despite Wisdom's initial resistance to her acts of kindness, she continued to make breakfast for both Bella and him every morning, trying to bridge the gap between them. However, Wisdom would bluntly refuse the food, reminding her to stick to her job of taking care of Bella. But Daniela remained undeterred by his dismissive remarks, choosing to ignore his words and persist in her efforts. Each day, she would prepare a delicious spread, hoping to foster a sense of togetherness. However, Wisdom's rejection became a daily routine, leaving Daniela feeling disheartened. One day, Daniela reached her breaking point. She locked the front door, declaring that she wouldn't allow Wisdom to leave for work if he didn't eat the breakfast she had prepared. His strength and futile attempts to open the door failed, and after a series of frustrated yells, he finally had no choice but to agree. And from that day forward, breakfast became a shared ritual between Wisdom, Daniela, and Bella. Their shared meals created an unexpected bond, and gradually Wisdom found himself enjoying this newfound family dynamic, although he tried to deny his growing feelings. One day, Wisdom's mother paid a visit to their home. As she entered and saw Daniela, her face filled with delight. Embracing Daniela happily, she exclaimed that her son had finally found a girlfriend. Before Daniela could react, Wisdom appeared from behind, wrapping his arms around her and planting a gentle kiss on her cheek. He whispered to Daniela, asking her to play along. That night, Wisdom called Daniela into his room, requesting that she pretend to be his girlfriend for the duration of his mother's visit. Initially, she refused, but after Wisdom offered to double her salary, she reluctantly agreed, and thus began the charade of a couple deeply in love whenever his mother was present. In front of his mother, Wisdom and Daniela acted affectionate, holding hands, stealing glances, and displaying gestures of affection. With each passing day, Wisdom found himself growing more drawn to Daniela, despite his best efforts to deny his feelings. Sometimes when he returns from work, he would often meet Daniela and Bella playing together, and the sight warmed his heart. Following his mother's advice, Daniela started taking lunch to Wisdom at his office, further deepening their connection. One day, one of Wisdom's friends visited him at work and noticed him laughing and sharing lunch with Daniela. Observing their act, the friend remarked that it seemed like Wisdom had finally decided to give love another chance. Wisdom dismissed the comment, insisting that Daniela was merely his nanny who brought him lunch. But his friend saw through the facade, telling Wisdom to stop lying to himself and admit that he had already fallen for her. This realization infuriated Wisdom, as he had sworn off love after his first wife had betrayed him in unimaginable ways. The pain and heartbreak from that experience were still fresh in his memory, and he didn't want to open himself up to that vulnerability again. Consequently, Wisdom began behaving coldly towards Daniela, rebuffing her kind gestures and refusing to eat the meals she prepared. One day, he went so far as to embarrass her in front of his colleagues, belittling her and claiming that she was not his type, insinuating that her actions were an attempt to seduce him. However, Daniela couldn't bear the humiliation and anger any longer. With tears swelling in her eyes, she stood up for herself and explained that she had no intention of seducing Wisdom. She revealed the true purpose behind the advance money he had given her. It was meant to help her mother, who was battling cancer, and all the efforts she had put into their relationship were driven by her genuine gratitude for Wisdom's trust and support, not by any ulterior motive. Distraught, Daniela left the office, leaving Wisdom to grapple with the weight of his words and actions. Back at home, she withdrew, giving him the cold shoulder and refusing to engage with him as she had before. Every attempt Wisdom made to talk to her was met with avoidance, further deepening his remorse. Observing his son's distress, his mother approached Wisdom, urging him to confront his mistakes and not lose the woman who clearly cared for him deeply. Realizing the gravity of his actions, Wisdom decided to make amends and planned a surprise dinner for Daniela. Apologizing from the depths of his heart, Wisdom admitted that he had only acted out of fear, as he could no longer deny the fact that he had fallen for her. He expressed his regret for pushing her away, acknowledging that his life before her had been lonely and devoid of purpose. Barely able to contain his emotions, Wisdom asked for Daniela's forgiveness and pleaded with her to be his girlfriend, this time with genuine feelings and intentions. He assured her that he had learned from his mistakes and was ready to embrace love once again, this time with her by his side. Tears streamed down Daniela's face as she listened to his heartfelt confession. Overwhelmed with a mixture of emotions, she realized that her feelings for him had grown stronger throughout their time together. With a trembling voice, she accepted his apology and acknowledged that she also had developed feelings for him.